here's your host, Alex Garrett.
All right, well, before we get to our big guest on Terminello's Take, I got to say, Lou, I don't think you thought 6 years ago you'd be talking about an anniversary we had for you 6 years ago today, April 9th.
You know what? I forgot all about it until you sent that picture for my anniversary, for my retirement party. That's the 6th-year anniversary. Time does fly, that's for sure.
But here we are 6 years later doing a podcast every day, every week. It seems like every day sometimes because we always talk. So, Lou, tell us who our next big guest is following the NCAA tournament and UConn's big win to repeat TUConn, as the New York Post says. Tell us who's on the line with us today and on our vlog with us today.
Well, the guy that we're going to be talking to today, I met 43 years ago back on June 1st, 1981. You talk about all this analytics and all this video scouting. You're looking at the man who started it. He got the ball rolling, and he's a great friend. He's creative. He had vision, and he's been successful. And God bless him. Mitch Kaufman, my dear friend. Welcome to Alex and Lou's podcast. We appreciate it.
This is so cool. This is so cool. I'm so happy to be here. So happy to be here.
I want to start out. You are a video guy, from what I've heard, Mitch. So tell us about breaking down film through the tournament. What exactly role did you play? Was it for all the teams in the tournament? Tell us about your role breaking down the film for these guys.
Well, we can go before that if you want. Breaking down the film was about halfway through. First, we had to teach them how to film the games on video instead of 8mm or 16mm, because that took 3 days to get back from the processor and didn't do anybody any good. Plus, you couldn't record TV shows off a 16mm camera. I happened to be at the right place at the right time. I'll only say it once or twice, but the University of Michigan bought Bo Schembechler a video reel-to-reel tape recorder in 1968. If you've ever seen an audio reel-to-reel tape recorder, you know what I'm talking about, because most people don't know what a video reel-to-reel tape recorder is. They bought him that in 1968 because he wanted to get the practices and the games at his house as soon as possible. And back then, the only way to do it was to send it out to a Kodak lab and wait 4 days. So when videotape was invented, Don Canham, the athletic director of Michigan, allowed Bo to get this brand new high Stratton video system. 1972, Sony upgrades the black and white version to a color version. Bo says, I want that. And Michigan, being so cheap, instead of throwing out the old black and white VTR, said, hey, let's give it to basketball, see if they can figure it out. Knock, knock, a year later, I become the basketball manager at Michigan. And I credit both my grandfathers for buying me reel-to-reel audio tape recorders when I was 4 years old that I could take apart and put together and know exactly how they work and how to thread them. So when it came to video, it was not a challenge for me. And I find myself at the age of 17 filming Michigan basketball practices and games.
So you got kicked off right as a freshman. You kicked all of this off.
As a freshman, there were only two managers in those days. There was a freshman manager and two varsity managers. But they threw on me so they could be on the floor helping the coaches filming the practices. Of course, I was gung-ho and said, yeah, I'll do it.
Now, Mitchell, didn't you do some filming for the athletics when you were at Fort Lee High School?
No, there was no film then. I was just manager of 4 sports.
Okay.
I was Mr. Stats back then.
Okay.
So 17-year-old Mitch is working for Michigan basketball. And, of course, I got to get into the, what was it, the Fab Five. We got to talk about that a little later on. But
yes,
I want to ask about filming as a 17-year-old. How quick were you with the turnaround? Because they wanted it pretty quickly, right?
Well, we had the crazy part was the only thing you could play it back on was an 8-inch black and white TV, because there was no RF outputs to channel 3 back in those days. It was like a 32-pin connector to a special TV. So we had the unit, which weighed about 70 pounds on a cart with a little black and white TV on top of the cart. And we would take the cart from where we shot and go in the elevator and bring it down to the locker room after the game so they could see it, and after practices. So the turnaround was amazingly simple, and there was no other school in the world doing it.
And
So
now
here comes the interesting part. The Detroit Pistons have their training camp at Chrysler Arena that year. They had just fired their head coach, Ray Scott, and replaced him with a gentleman I'd never heard of called Herb Brown, with their brand new first-year trainer, Mike Abdenauer. Both walk over to me on the concourse while I'm filming practice and say, "What the F are you doing over there?" They had never seen anybody film. They had never seen anyone videotape a basketball game and be able to watch it back immediately. They said, "Hey, we're playing in Toledo against the Buffalo Braves tomorrow night. Can you come with us?" I said, this is not me. You got to speak to Coach Orr, which they did. And he said, fine. And turns out I videotaped the first ever reel-to-reel video NBA preseason game back in 1975 or 6. The Buffalo Braves against the Detroit Pistons. Crazy stuff.
Alex, how's that for a little bit of history?
Crazy stuff.
I love history. This is so
all
cool.
5 years. This is all 5 years before VHS or Sony Beta.
Right, that's right.
So
Yeah.
really, nobody was using it.
So, Mitch, did that get a lot of publicity? You filmed an NBA
No.
game in a preseason.
No publicity. 4 years later, I graduate. 3 years later, I graduate Michigan. I go to UMass to get a master's in science and sports management. And part of the degree is you have to internship with a team. So I had a choice. I made friends with the Pistons, obviously. A gentleman by the name of Harry Hutt was in charge over there. And
Good
he
man.
wanted me to come intern with him. But after 4 years of Michigan winters, I asked my father if he knew anybody out east. And he knew someone who knew someone who knew someone who knew Charlie Theokas, who was general manager of the New Jersey Nets. So I come in to intern from UMass with the Nets. And long story short, I started in May 79, and they had to kick me out about 40 years later. But
And that's where you met a youngster named Lou Terminello, I heard, right?
that's when I met a youngster named Lou Terminello.
Well, Charlie Theokas
Who taught us things we never knew, because we were not salesmen at the time.
Right. Yeah. No, it's what Mitch has done is been spectacular. Now he was in sales. He left sales. We won't go into that story, but that was the best thing that ever happened to Mitch Kaufman.
Best thing that ever happened.
And I remember the day that you left sales.
Best thing that ever happened.
And like I said in the opening, he's a visionary. He's years ahead of his time. And when you left the Nets from the sales point of view and became the Nets video guy, how did it snowball right after that?
When we beat the Sixers in 1984,
Correct.
Sports Illustrated wrote an article on it. There's two things. The first thing was the Princeton Summer League.
Mm-hmm.
The Nets in 1982 or 3 started the Princeton Summer League because they were too cheap to fly out for the California Summer League. So they put together New York, New Jersey, Washington, Philly for a week at Pete Carroll's house. And then it grew and we added Boston and Atlanta. So I really started meeting the teams because I was videotaping these Summer League games. And Bob McKinnon, God bless him, told me to charge every team $100 a game and sell as many as you can. One of the days, David Stern and Darryl Garrettson come down to watch. They too, like Herb Brown and Mike Abdenauer, had never seen anyone apparently videotaping with a reel-to-reel video. Well, we were doing 3/4 inch back with the Nets before before VHS. But he had never seen the immediate turnaround time, and both their eyes lit up. Darryl wanted me to zoom out, and whenever I heard a whistle, zoom in on the referee that made the call so he could see the hand gestures. So all of a sudden, I'm teaching the league how video is going to help them do their job better. So I became friendly with them. And then I was a gentleman that was Lou's intern, Matt Merchant, opened up a satellite store and told me, you know, Mitch, you can record every NBA game if you buy enough satellite dishes. They're all up there. This is 12 years before DirecTV. So David Stern found that out and said, I got to put you in front of the general managers committee so you can get some revenue and buy teams so I can see the games. I don't really care if the teams can see the game, but he wanted to see. Bill Lambier used to like throw punches a lot in those days.
Well, Mitch, not to cut you off, but you said that Bill Lambier threw punches in those days. You were the guy that basically gave the video evidence that got these guys suspended during altercations.
Yes, David called me, and we drove tapes to his house, and the NBA was known around all sports as being the team that suspended players quicker than other teams because I was bringing VHS tapes to David's house that night. Don't tell the Knicks.
Alex, the famous Miami Knicks brawl in the playoff game where Van Gundy is holding on to Alonzo Mourning's leg. All that video, and Mitch, jump in wherever you want to. All that video evidence came out of Hoop1Video, Mitch's company.
Mitch, right. I gotta ask you this: what did you catch that TV did not catch? How did you differ yourself from what the TV was showing us?
I was just looking frame by frame, and they weren't. And in the rules those days, it was very simple. If you crossed that line coming off the bench, you were suspended. And that's what they wanted to know. That's where I helped come in.
Did you have to angle yourself in a certain?
They didn't have multi angles at the bench, so I would just watch, and I would be at the mercy of the TV replays. But I'd be live going through the TV replays frame by frame with the commissioner on the phone, asking me, what am I seeing, kind of thing.
Wow. So where they would see it so fast, where the audience would see it so fast, you were able to slow it down with Hoop1Video.
Well, it was after the fact. All this was after the game.
Okay.
None of this was going on during the game. We were great at hindsight. But we were the first. They knew the night of. They had in their hands the night of the evidence, which technology just didn't allow the other leagues to do.
And so you're young being. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Alex.
Sorry. You're young being introduced to the general managers committee. I mean, tell us what that was like. Were you a little nervous? Were you like, I can't believe I'm here right now?
Very nervous because sitting to the left of me is Jerry West.
Yeah, no, obviously that would be intimidating.
Lou Sheffield stood up for me. I had about 4 or 5. All the general managers that knew me from the Princeton Summer League stood up on my behalf and said he can do it. Let's give him a shot and stuff like that. But even now, I'm just thinking, going back, the reason that I met even more coaches were because the Nets stunk so much that we kept firing coaches who got jobs with other teams. And I was the only video person on any team back then. So they would call me, Mitch, did you happen to catch that game on USA Network last night? Can you do us a favor, make a copy and send it to us? And by the way, enclose a bill. So I had a legion of former Nets coaches throughout the league that also helped spread the word. Once I did open Hoop1Video, I had automatic customers kind of. No team had a video guy until about 1987. So for the first 2 years, we were just sending the tapes to the assistant coaches who
Lou, what comes
had no
to mind
idea how to work a machine.
you know, what comes to mind as I'm hearing this is for my generation, it was the Ron Artest Meta World Peace incident in Detroit. Were you able to get on that and send the league tapes on that too?
That was a few nights too, but by then they had NBA Entertainment running. So I wasn't their only source. But from about 1985, I don't know what year that was, but I think from about 1985 to at least 2003, I was their only source. They didn't have the headquarters in Secaucus yet. But every team wanted tapes waiting for them, even though they didn't have a video guy, when they checked into a hotel at 2 o'clock in the morning of the next three opponents' games.
The best net you got to film was?
Well, Jason.
Yeah, Jason changed everything. Jason changed everything. Yeah.
Jason
and Buck was a great competitor.
Drazen gets an asterisk. Ricky Mahorn gets an asterisk for different reasons. Now you're making me think about the fun part of it.
When you're approached to sell your product, I mean, how did you feel like, all right, this is worth it? How did you start the economic part of this? Because that's a big part of your Hoop1Video as well. The way it was helping you economically, right?
Well, I bought enough equipment and I got enough teams to cover the costs. You make no money your first few years. Hello, Precious. You make no money your first few years, just like any other business. And eventually I started getting some college customers too.
Well, that was the next big thing, right? Right, Mitchell? And then the college attraction ended up being
Raleigh, Massimino, and Villanova in '85 still talk about me. 4 or 5 college coaches have written about me in their books that they wouldn't have won if they didn't have an availability for tape. It's not that I helped them win, but I gave them an availability of tape to allow them to win that they may not would have had without me. But
Alex, if Mitch didn't give Steve Fisher tape in '89, Seton Hall probably would have one national championship to their name.
In regulation, going away.
Probably, yeah. No, that's
Mitch. One question I had.
Let's not dwell on that.
Mitch, I was going to ask you, and I was talking to Lou about this in our prep meeting. I was thinking to myself, all right, so if you're managing multiple teams, is it not a conflict of interest? You're sending defense of one team while covering, something of another team. Like, how did you balance that out?
So I'm in '86, '87. Detroit and Chicago were playing each other. I'm breaking down Chicago, and my fiance Marisa is breaking down Detroit, and then one of us is breaking down Atlanta for Mike Fratello. Well, both of us sharing it, and they kind of flew both of us out for the playoffs that year. And she was working in the Pistons. She was telling the Pistons how to set up their video room. And I was telling either the Bulls or the Hawks how to set up their video room. It's crazy. The first video guys are now either head coaches or general managers or agents, or they are their generation. They're the generation keeping the NBA in business this year.
Well, Eric Spoelstra was a video guy, right?
Eric Spoelstra and Jeff Weltman are my two claims to fame, but Rick Pitino sent Jeff Van Gundy and Stu Jackson down for me to teach them how to edit. In those days, editing was having 2 VCRs, and we did what we called deck-to-deck editing. So that's how you could, after the fact, create an offense-only tape, create a defense-only tape. And referring back to that Sports Illustrated article in '84, when Stan Albeck said, Mitch, can you make individual player tapes so our guys can take home and study their opponent? So he said, in those days, you played your opponent 6 times in the regular season.
Right.
So we took all 6 of those games and we made one big offense-defense tape for the coaching staff to look at. And then every time, say, one of the Sixers took a shot in any of the 6 games, that got put on his own tape. So we built a 20-minute tape on each player, every shot he took against us in the regular season, which made our players realize that there are sometimes they don't have to run around 3 screens. They know that they're waiting for him to get picked off by one of those guys. So he just cuts diagonally across because he knows where the guy's ending up, and he can now prevent the pass from happening and screw the play up. And that was done on blackboards prior to that, because it took a week to make each of these tapes almost back then, before digital videography. But the concept was that the players were now going home and studying their opponents. And that was Stan Albeck, who was
a great guy to know, and
who was
an outstanding coach.
I mean, the coaching branches that I've been lucky enough to have dinner with and have them tell me what they want, what they're looking for, and can I figure out a way to make it happen.
So, Mitch, you talk about analytics. Don't you think that you started analytics with your video scouting? You provide them with data.
I was one of the Jordan Cohn started it with math. He's the one that actually assigned percentages to different situations. But no one would have had a footage to dissect the games. Somebody was going to, but I happened to be the one that came along, so they could get the footage.
Right. But I mean, as far as
think of me as the librarian. I'm not the analytics guy.
Right.
I'm more of the librarian. But look what it's turned into. Since technology allowed you to digitize video, since technology allowed you to aggregate Excel file data in live time, and now you can overlay those two things together in editing systems and in a timeline, and have a game logged for you when it ends, is pretty cool. And now now AI is doing that. I'm talking to some people, but eventually they'll get it to work, and it's going to work really good.
Mitch, today's world is all about getting those clips very instantly. So how do you keep up with that kind of world of getting these teams the clips instantly, even up maybe for their social media? I don't know. Does that ever play a role?
Well, no, this is I'm strictly my sourcing is strictly is for non-public distribution. Okay. My video is strictly for the coaching staff and the internal team staff. But they the old joke is the bus doesn't wait for the video guy. So after the game, they have to have their next 5 opponents' games that were played the same time they played tonight on their laptops. And that's what they get from me.
Okay, so
now they go on the bus, and each assistant coach gets they're in charge of the scout. So you get the Minnesota game, you get the Indiana game, you get the Illinois. And then they'll go through and they'll flag plays to start the creation of the video.
So because of Mitch Kaufman, by practice the next morning, they're already practicing their drills because you got them the footage they needed.
But the coaching staff is done by the Plainlands and can take the night off instead of having to stay up all night till 6 a.m. making this tape that they want to show the team in the morning. All that's done now before the Plainlands, and now it gets distributed to the players' iPads and phones.
Well, that's a big difference. Oh, since you started, obviously, where you had all those, you had all those tapes and cassettes that you had to send out.
Everybody had to wait for FedEx. I'm reporting a Saturday game. FedEx is closed Sunday. I ship it Monday. They get it Tuesday, and they're happy. So they're getting a Saturday game Tuesday, and they're ecstatic. They're not like that anymore.
Right. So Mitch, I know that you also do. You've worked with the NHL for many years. You've done stuff.
Jerry Daly.
Oh, that's right. Yes, when he went to the Devils. You have some NFL
3 Stanley Cup rings.
Yes, you do.
How crazy you want?
I have no rings.
I have no best. I would trade. I don't tell my hockey people, but I would.
Yeah. Tell us about the craziness of Selection Sunday.
Well, that used to be. I was the only accountant, and it was tax day. So Tom Izzo would call an hour before to get put on hold. And only had 3 phone lines. But it started with Larry Brown and John Calipari. So it started with Al Menendez. Al Menendez in 1985, I recorded 300-400 games just off cable TV. The Nets got me 3 machines. And Al said, hey, Mitch, categorize on index cards by team so I know when we have prospects which tape to look at it at. So while I'm watching the bids night, I'm looking at 300 tapes on my floor and 200 index cards on my bed. And I had in those days what was called the NCAA Black Book.
Oh, okay.
Which had the address and phone number of every college in the country, every athletic department by sport. So I said, as a lark, I call Larry Brown. And I leave a message because Larry had just left us for Kansas. And I said, by the way, you're playing Lamar in the first round, and I have these 10 games. Let me know if you want them. 10 minutes later, my phone rings. This is from my bedroom. 10 minutes later, my phone rings. Are you Mitch? Yeah. Hi, I'm calling from Kansas. Coach Brown said to call you. I'm his grad assistant, John Calipari. You have what? You can get a what? How quickly can you put it on a plane? I don't want to wait till FedEx. Can you put it on a plane? And that's kind of how Hoop1Video got started. I made a few more phone calls. And everybody wanted it. So,
Mitch, sometimes on Selection Sunday, you had to.
Well, we hired 15 people.
Yeah.
And all those 15 people are now running NBA Entertainment, ironically. But the cooler part was all the schools within 5 hours would drive to the East Rutherford practice facility. Jeff Ruland used to come with a box of cigars, but you had to wait for 2 hours for your tapes to dub.
Right. Oh, my God. Yeah. This is amazing.
So we had 10, 15. Connecticut sent 5 people. The Philadelphia people, after a while, got smart, and all Big 5 came in one car.
That was smart. Yeah.
Mitch, I got to ask you this. When you see a game on TV, or even if you're there and you're like, all right, these guys are following my tapes, how does that make you feel? Like you're making a difference on the court right now from behind the scenes?
It's a nice feeling. It's a nice feeling. The world doesn't know, but I know. So that's good enough.
The world will know because we're putting this on a podcast.
Well,
know who Mitch Kaufman is.
Well,
they didn't know to hate me. They didn't know to hate me back then when their team lost. So
the thing is, and Mitch and I have talked about this, and recently, and we've talked about this a couple of years ago. Obviously, Mitch Kaufman should be considered. Not should be considered. He should be in the Basketball Hall of Fame. I mean, he should be. He helped change the game. And that is a quality that is Hall of Fame worthy. The thing is, Mitch, all these years later, how and with all the updated technology, you're still thriving in your in Hoop One. How you doing that?
I used to think it was my good looks, honestly. I do it better than everybody else. I know what coaches want. I keep them happy. I'm working with great IT people. I'm working with great people who record the games for me. But the truth of the matter is we increased our upload engine. So now after I push stop, 17 seconds later, this magical thing Al Gore created called the cloud, I'm not FedExing games anymore.
Right.
That's the cool part. Before the first commercial is over, they have that quarter. And their scout has it, and they have it in the video room, and I'm on some owners' phones because we had to start streaming during the pandemic because people couldn't go to the games. So in addition to me having files that they download into the editing system, now everything I have is streaming for everyone in the organization, which is pretty cool too. That's why they like me, because every 6 months everybody else is obsolete, and
right.
I got some good guys with me.
Plus, they trust you,
Plus my good looks.
and of course, those good looks. That's for sure.
Well, I do have a sense of they do trust me.
Sure, no, that and
They do trust me.
that feeling of
I'll
comfort.
try not to let them down. They know that. And
No,
we do the
I
best
hear
we
you.
can.
You know, Lou and Mitch, you know,
They tell them 5 days ahead, you're going to hate me 5 nights a year and ahead because of the weather in Jersey.
Right,
Knocking out my signal, don't hold it against me.
right.
Lou and Mitch, my indoctrination to game film was actually at Queens College, because I would actually call the games over the game film they were utilizing for review that next night. So that was kind of interesting. But I got to ask you, I don't know if you consider them a competitor, but the only game film and was Tape Exchange. I don't know if you know about them or if you work with them at all, or if they're a competitor. Like that's the only one up until now that I know of in the college world.
Well, no, there are a lot of them out there, but they're allowed to intentionally not give the best picture quality.
That I did
And
not.
they're allowed within their rules to not have to send the game immediately. And people would just want, in addition, see, it's not one or the other. I mean, there's a Burger King, there's a McDonald's, and there's a Palm Steakhouse. Sometimes you want,
Right.
Sometimes you want, but the world is big enough for everybody.
Are there any schools you're
Budgets
not
didn't
covering?
used to be. Excuse me?
Are there any schools you're not covering that right now that you want to cover?
Oh yeah. Oh, there's plenty of schools that are using. I'm less in the college world than I used to because of the analytic companies, but that's okay. I still have enough. I still have
Well, Mitch,
the smartest schools are still using.
and you say you have all the you're still doing the NHL, correct?
But I have every NHL and every NBA team knock.
Mm-hmm. And
All right, so tell me,
Likes me.
for CBS football, right?
All of CBS Sports. CBS gets 6,000 college basketball games, and the NFL and golf and college football.
Even more than I thought.
Bill Raftery. Well, they had other companies they were dealing with for different sports, and they said, "Mitch, can you do all of this?" And I said, "Sure, why not?" And of course, that's because of Bill Raftery.
There's a lot of international players who have achieved great success in the NBA. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, but weren't you also the first guy to get international tapes to these teams?
To give them, I had a guy that Larry Harris, son of Dell, was general manager of Milwaukee before Golden State, possibly. He introduced me to the Hoop1 of Europe.
Okay.
And so there was a guy in Europe that bought in 3,000 Europe games. So he used to come visit me with 8 suitcases of VHS tapes, which was cheaper for him to fly.
Right.
Than for him to ship them to me.
Right.
And then I had to buy converters from the European format to turn them into United States format. But yes, we had 1,000 European games, again, before others. Now there are 100 options. But back then I was, again, the only accountant in town for a while. And
that's a good thing. That's a great thing. So when you wake up in the morning, get your workday started, Mitchell?
Well, you see, that's weird. See, I had to always have everything finished when the coaches woke up at 6 a.m. And the West Coast games don't end until 1:30. So I used to get everything done, and I used to have to drop off tapes to the Devils coach, to John Cunniff's house, to Dave Wall's house, to Bill Fitch's house, before they woke up. Their back porch doors were left open for me to drop tapes off at 2 o'clock in the morning of the next 2 opponents, 3 opponents, offense, defense, hockey, penalty play, power kill, penalty kill, power play tapes, 3-on-2.
Yeah. Wow.
opportunities, crazy stuff. So to answer your question, I work at night and sleep during the day. Of course, the games are at night, and it's crazy. Yes.
I got to ask you this. When the NHL went to 3-on-3 in overtime, did that change something for you? Because, I mean, that was an adjustment every team in the league had to make, right?
It just made you have to pay attention more, but it didn't really affect us. We'll show you whatever they show you, but it was different. Being a hockey person and hanging out with hockey. See, the cool part about hockey is I got to make 2 halftime tapes per game. In the NBA, the coaches would ask me and tell me things they wanted. They wanted to watch 10 or 15 plays at halftime. So they give me parameters to look for, to build a tape that they could watch at halftime or show the team. In hockey, you had 2 halftimes. So I always felt that I could help contribute even more. So that was fun.
Does that even go down to how the guy's stick is angling, like why he didn't make a goal that period, or even for the goalie, why he let that goal in type of thing?
Yeah. Yes. And they would adjust on the fly, and they would know, and hopefully give them an advantage.
Wow.
To win.
Did you think, what was the video you got of the 8 ejections the other night with the Devils and Rangers? I have to ask you that. What was the video you got on that? Because there was a brawl, right? Second in that game.
That's been going on for years. When a team starts their 4th line, you usually know something. We used to play the Go Have Another Donut series with the Devils, right. Boston Bruins. We sued the NHL, and their officials wouldn't show up. So our goal judges put on skates and became hockey officials for a playoff game, and it went to court. And I flew on a plane with Dr. McMullen to show the incident to President Ziegler at the time.
Right. There was no commissioner yet. It was Easter 1988.
1988, the first
Easter
year
Sunday,
Devils,
1988.
Johnny McClain's shot put us in the playoffs.
Yeah, I remember that. Yep.
Man, this has been so fun.
You're taking me back. I'm leaving names out. I want to give credit to all the coaches.
Well, let's talk about
that taught me and asked me, Mitch, can you do this? And Mitch, the TV stations, of course, $50,000. So my general manager would say, Mitch, I need you to figure out how to do it for $5.
Hey,
we got it done.
It's all in the math.
We got it done. It kept me in my job all those years. So
Marty Brodeur, what was it like shooting him? Because what a goalie for the Devils.
Pardon me?
Marty Brodeur, what was that like shooting him and getting video of him?
Wow, Marty Brodeur is the greatest goalie, but Kenny Dryden might be the greatest goalie. But Marty Brodeur was amazing. That was a lot of fun. Had a lot of fun with those guys. Those were 3 cups in 8 years. Is pretty cool.
And they really should have won a couple of more.
Well, we had in 2012. Don't get me started. They were supposed to call a minor 30 seconds before they called the major in the LA game, and LA scores 100 goals during the major, and it's over.
Yeah.
You know, one topic I want to bring up with Lou.
Can I piss off your Ranger fans? Mato? Slava kicked it in. Stop. Leave me alone.
Yeah, no, I know. I know. And
damn it, I should have another ring for that year too.
Yeah. Well, because if they won that game, they're beating Vancouver. And they should have beaten Colorado.
The 3 of us and Claudia's 2 kids could beat Vancouver.
That's right. And they should have beaten. They come back from Colorado up 3 games to game 6. They lose game 6 in the Meadowlands, which I never thought. And then they lost game 7 at Colorado.
At Danny Harris's wedding.
Danny Harris's wedding. That's right. The old Nets ticket manager.
Mitch and Lou, you know, Mitch, we have a mutual connection, I believe. Did you know Louis Katz that well? Was he involved in this?
What
you were doing?
Wonderful. Yes. No, they always used to come into the video room. All the owners used to come into the video room because they had to pass me on their way to their car.
Right. That's
and
right.
they always would be complaining. Sometimes they'd ask me to show them something. But I remember.
Lou, I know I'm asking a lot of questions on Terminello's take, but I'm just so enthralled with this. This is incredible.
No, hey, you're doing a great job.
I got to ask you this. When you look at the way game film was used by the Patriots to maybe spy on certain teams, did that bother you? Like, why are you using game film for that, or your video crew for that? Did that piss you off or what?
Not at all. I might have been asked to do similar things in my day. What's the statute of limitations? I'm not sure, but
because video became that kind of.
I was told to deflate when I was manager of the football team in high school and it rained. I was told to deflate the football when we had the ball. So that
was because Tommy DeRizio had such small hands.
This stuff is not new. Well, no.
How did you make sure, with everybody you know and everybody, how did you make sure all of the video you've taken over your career not get leaked? I mean, leaks are a big part of what the media world is saying. How did any of that not get leaked?
The technology wasn't available back then to leak as much as it is now. And now anybody who's leaking it is not getting it from me. It's so easy to record from any source now these days, sort of. So I never, I never got in trouble for any of that. Second of all, that was never really, the public never knew about me. So I never had to deal with that. Intentionally, the public never knew about me.
Right.
So do you feel like this podcast, like a mask is coming off with the guy behind it all? Is that what this is, Louis and Mitch, or what?
Nah, Mitch is more well known now, and because of his great work. But Mitchell, I got a question for you. With the NBA draft coming up, will you get a lot of requests from teams for certain guys who might be drafted in the first round, or certain guys on the borderline?
Well, if in the past, of course. In the past, every team would get a box of 100 VHS tapes. Because of the cloud, everything is self-served these days. And not only am I available, but they spend hundreds and hundreds and millions of dollars on other companies putting together prospects and showing them video and things like that. Some coaches have told me they don't like that. They would just rather watch a full game because they want to see a player's body language. They don't want to just see clips. They want to see after he just gets dunked on, is he moping? Is he looking for women in the stands during timeouts?
Right.
You just get more of a feel of the human than just watching clips. So there's a yin and a yang, just like anything else. But the teams still use me and lots of other sources to make their decisions. They have a lot more available to them than they used to. Maybe in the old days, more of that when I was the only kid on the block. But
Mitch, one last question. Go ahead, Alex. Go ahead.
Oh my God, I could ask him a lot of questions.
Well, I got one last question for Mitch, and then you can go. Mitch, it's not a video
you got to
question.
cut me off, you see.
No, it's not a video question. The state of the NBA today. Obviously, we grew up and we were with the Nets during the greatest time in the NBA history. The Nets might not have been so great, but Bird, Magic, Dr. J, Karl Malone, Stockton, Jordan. I mean, these teams played, to me, a different level of NBA game that we see now.
No three-point shots.
But even when the three-point shot was in, I mean, I was looking at a famous NBA playoff series between the Celtics and the Sixers. Obviously, they played 3 or 4 times in the early 80s. The year that the Sixers blew the 3-1 lead in 81, I looked at the box score. In games 5, 6, and 7, there was one three-pointer taken by Chris Ford, and he missed it.
Yeah.
So it wasn't part of the game.
And do you know if it was at the end of a quarter? Or
that's right. It could have been a 70-footer.
You don't know. It could have been a Hail Mary end of the quarter shot. You don't know.
But
And some players wouldn't take because they didn't want their percentage to go down.
no doubt, no question. And
Well, the game's totally changed. The game's
is it likable?
Totally changed on so many. It used to be able to touch somebody when you were guarding them. You're not allowed to touch somebody when you're guarding anymore. There was no such thing as a Euro step. It was actually 1.5 steps, or it was a travel.
That's right.
4.5 steps, and it's a beautiful shot. Not sure when that happened either. It's a different game. You can't really compare the two.
Is it a better game?
We're all dinosaurs. We're all dinosaurs.
Just the eye of the beholder.
Of course, everything was better when Wilton Russell played, and Oscar.
No,
when every player played 82 games, 48.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Of course,
I'll be honest with you. Every night when I'm sitting down and I'm watching, I'm going up and down the dial, and I see on the crawl every NBA game, somebody not playing, they make illness, toe sprain. It's a shame, right? I mean, it really is, and it's for somebody like us, who spend so much time in it.
Well, as a kid, you go into your game. The Superstars team comes into town. The only time they come into town, and you're looking forward to it all year. And he scored a lot of points the night before, so now they're sitting.
Well, we'll take a guy like Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan, when the Bulls were winning those championships, we were not good. We were winning 20 games a year, 23 games a year, 17 games a year.
Kerry stole the ball once.
Yeah, no, but
we were not good.
Right. No, but did Jordan, the Bulls could, when they came into the Meadowlands, could have said, you know what, we're going to say that you have a pulled calf and we're going to give you the night off. Jordan never missed a game at the Meadowlands. Neither did Magic. Neither did Dr. J.
No.
Neither did Bird. Neither did Kareem. We can go right down the line. It's a different mindset.
It used to be more of a ballet because you were trying to work for a layup.
Right. That's right.
Now nobody cares about layups anymore.
Well, Stan Van Gundy said something during his NCAA tournament games. He said that the college game is now more physical than the NBA game. Think about that. And I think
that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. So
no, you're not allowed to touch anybody when you guard them anymore.
No, I really don't.
That's why it's like 1,000 points a game. It feels like is scored, right? Because no one's touching each other. There's no defense. Mitch, a couple of things for me.
The video replay is ruining the last 5 minutes of the game, darn it. That's what bothers me.
They should be able to get to that answer one way or the other.
Pete Secaucus knows the call. Why are we looking at this for 10 minutes?
Pete Williams.
Yeah.
Our buddy.
They see. They know. Yeah. Why are we still? That's what the NHL does. They just tell the ref.
As a video guy, do you have to know, all right, here's the type of plays that go on? Like, do you have to know screens and have to know pick and roll? Like, all those different strategies, or do you just have to?
Well, when you're logging the game, the person that's logging the game needs to be a coach these days. In the old days, you could only, since you were live logging and nothing was after the fact on computers, you were only really able to log an offense, a defense, a player that took the shot, maybe if it was against a man or a zone. Now they're putting 800 descriptors on every possession, because now it's also what part of the court the shot was taken from, how many seconds are on the 24-second clock, what the fouls were on the two guys guarding each other. And now they have spacing because of the cameras in the ceiling, so they know if someone was actually guarded or not guarded, all 5 players at the same time, which you just couldn't do as one human logging a game live. That's what's changed. The fact that now we can go into it and so much more gets attached to it so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Any dish on the Hurley brothers or the Hurley family that you got to do video for? Because, I mean, look, what we saw last night with UConn was incredible. Again, second time in a row. Danny Hurley is an incredible coach. I mean, anything about the Hurley family that you want to talk about, or did you get to film their stuff?
Just as people, having met the dad back in 1979 or 80, because Jerry Daly, who was working with us at the Nets, was his assistant coach at St. Anthony's 2 years prior. So he used to come over and come out to lunch and bring these two little rugrats with him sometimes. And look what they turned into. So that's a part that's very satisfying, of course. The Seton Hall and the Connecticut factors is very satisfying, of course. And it's just good for the game, I think, at the same time.
Do you feel like to even that you are sort of a school of the game for these kids that are growing up in the college world? Like they're going to school and they watch your tape type of thing.
Well, they're not necessarily watching my tapes as much as they used to. So I don't think I have any impact on them, but their coaches have the impact on them, using me as one of the many tools in the coach's toolbox. But there are a lot of things that they can do. Coaches, well, every player didn't have his own coach back then either.
Right.
They didn't have their own rebounder. They didn't have their own masseuse. They didn't have their own coach.
Dietitian.
Squads were 15 people, not 85 people. It's just everything about it is different. But I don't give myself that much credit thinking that they're watching my tapes. Maybe I did 30 years ago. But now I know.
I only say that because I feel like
I'm just a piece of the puzzle now, I think.
I just feel like kids today are all about making the three and the big celebrations and all that. They're not about the school of the game. They're in it for themselves. Maybe you agree, disagree?
Well, I completely. Kobe 15 years ago said AAU destroyed basketball in this country. And I think he had a point. And I think we learned over the bubble that some of the most fundamentally sound players, last name ended in IC for some reason.
Right.
I'm not sure that's a coincidence, because we kicked our ass for all those years and they learned. They took it seriously.
Right.
Now,
and
Lou,
our kids didn't take it as seriously. It got too easy for our kids for some reason.
Now, Alex, listen to this. Mitchell, tell Alex, tell everybody about the famous Kobe Bryant workout at FDU in Hackensack. The next tryout.
See, every time I hear that, it's like a knife going through my heart, because I because I once made 2 copies of it.
Oh, okay. I got you.
And I sent one to Kobe. We kept one at Hoop. We made 2 DVDs of it. We had the VHS master. And when we moved everything, and Kobe didn't have it anymore and wanted it too.
Right.
But John Calipari, John Nash, Ed Schilling is the workout coach. Kobe Bryant comes to Fairleigh Dickinson University to work out for the Nets for an hour. I'm filming it.
I think Stan Olbeck was also there.
Yes. Stan was an assistant coach at the time back, and he was also there. Coincidentally, unfortunately for his part, Ed O'Bannon had just flown into town to begin, after his first year playing as a Net. He had won the Naismith Award as being the best college player in the country before. We picked him 8 or 9, kind of. He was okay. He comes to Fairleigh Dickinson, and they have the 2 of them play one-on-one. And again, I'm filming it. So Kobe's up 14-0. And Ed O'Bannon turns to him and said, What are you, 12? What are you, 13? It was a man playing against a boy, and Kobe was the greatest athlete ever. And I remember
the shot. It's amazing.
George had the film.
It was amazing workout. I remember Stan Alback coming into my office and I said, "How did the Kobe workout go?" And Stan's first thing he said to me, "I just saw the closest thing to Michael Jordan."
Right. So why didn't we draft him?
Well, again,
you're not allowed to say it on this, but
anyway. Well, there's a lot of stories that go on. I know the late great Willis Reed told management, even if his agent said that he's not going to come to New Jersey, draft him anyway. Where's he going to go? And later, Kobe said, "If I was drafted by the Nets, I would have played for the Nets."
Yeah.
So
imagine that.
Who knows? Imagine that.
Imagine that.
Incredible.
Talk about how history would have changed.
Imagine that.
But I remember that day.
Now you just made me think. The second greatest workout I ever filmed. Keith Van Horn.
Oh.
For 45 minutes, didn't miss. He missed one shot in 45 minutes. And the shot he missed hit back iron. He jumps after it, catches it with his hand, and tomahawks it back. That was the only shot he missed.
Yeah, no, he was a super talented guy.
We're looking at each other, and that's when Ed Schilling had him running around chairs and doing spot ups, and nobody else in the world was doing this stuff.
Right.
Because they were doing 5-star camp clinics with these guys. And it worked them out, and it was amazing.
While we're in this vein, and Lou and I talk about it every episode on Terminello's Take, does the transfer portal make your job a little more difficult, like trying to keep up with these guys in case, hey, he might go to the portal? Like, we got to get video of this guy. Does that change things for you at all? Or?
Well, I think it makes me more valuable. It doesn't really change things for me. But now teams, I was just talking to, again, whether it's better now or was it better then, talking to one of my former managers. And we were just so happy that everybody on our team wasn't a free agent when we were in college every year.
Right. Yeah.
Because when one of our assistant coaches transferred to Minnesota, half the team would have left with him, and we never would have had the team together to make the finals in 1976. Because half the team would have left in 1975.
Sure.
Thank God that wasn't an option.
Yeah.
Because I think this is ruining, as a fan, as an alum, as a coach, it's crazy. And we had to take all those banners down for paying the guys, and now you can pay them. So that's another.
Well, again, then put the banners back up. I mean, that has always been a pebble in my shoe. Is vacated nonsense. Even watching the post-game press conferences, any more questions for the student athletes? As Pitino said before the college basketball season at St. John's, "I'm coaching professionals." Yeah. Let's put it on the table that way.
No, when they made one and done legal, it stopped being student athletes now, didn't it?
Yeah, no, without question.
But these poor coaches.
Oh my! I
think I'm more Alex, to answer your question. I think it's now more of a year-round need. See, it used to be they were done scouting when they played their last game.
Right.
Now they're not.
All right, Mitch,
now they got to find out who didn't get the minutes at their old school that they can go after.
That's right.
I did have
who didn't get the shots who didn't get the shots that they got in when they were high school McDonald All-Americans, and they go.
You mean you're talking about anybody like went to USC that's leaving or anything like that? Okay.
Oh well, right, yeah. Like
Mitch, I tell you what, I'd love to have you back on after the postseasons for the NBA and NHL. Tell us what your video caught us that we might have seen on the average television broadcast.
That could be fun.
We should have you back on. But I want to ask you one thing about last night, because the whole thing about the networks, and I thought, and by the way, you have a friendship with Bill Raftery. He's awesome, and I want to get into that for a moment before we sign off.
You're kind of proud of Ian also, just so you know.
Yeah.
We know Ian.
And Ian, of course.
I think. So we go way back with him.
I love Ian. I saw him in the tunnel at Arthur Ashe Stadium. I said, "Do you ever sleep?" He's like, "What's sleep?" So, the guy is all over the place, and he's great. But for you, what was the difference truly shutting down Zach Edey? Is that what the film was saying to do last night? Or what exactly did UConn do right?
The film was let Zach Edey do whatever he wants.
Right. And they shut down everybody else.
And just because they don't have anybody else. So let Zach Edey do whatever you want. Don't let anybody else hurt you, because we got 8 pros and they got 1.5.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's
it's just attrition after a while, I think.
That's true. Well, Mitch, one last thing, and then I promise we'll let you go. The rise of the women's college game, women's sports in general.
How cool.
Has that helped? Does that help does that help your business?
No, we used to do college. The WNBA, Val Ackerman called me one day and said, Mitch, David Stern said you're the only person in the world that could help me. This is a month before the WNBA started. So we did the first 15 years of the WNBA. And they never had any money. Oh, okay. And finally, a different analytics company came in and said, we're going to do it for even cheaper than Mitch.
Right.
So I said that's fine. you can have it. So that's fine. But now we're working with a new analytics company, which is nice because that's the future. And apparently women's teams now have budgets to pay analytics companies. So me sourcing analytics companies is, to answer your question, going to be something really good.
That wasn't you taking a video of Kim Mulkey, though, when she was an athlete, right? Did you get any?
When we moved, I'm sorry to say that we tried to sell the women's games to the WNBA and to some of the top 10 colleges, and nobody really wanted them, and it was too expensive to move 3 times with 1,000 multi-thousand VHS tapes. I wish I met you guys earlier. I wish the technology. But
well, in that regard, then how can people still sign up with Hoop1Video? Is there
no one can sign up with Hoop1Video. That's the interesting part.
Huh.
Only schools can.
Huh.
That's my deal. I don't own the footage, but I'm allowed to distribute it to the teams.
That's right. That's right.
Otherwise, I'd be retired by now.
Well, Mitch, you're not going to be retired. You're going to be doing a lot of stuff in the spring. So come back, one tournament down, a couple Stanley Cup finals, and, and NBA finals to go. And we'll see you.
Maybe not have too many 6-game overtimes to 3 o'clock in the morning. That's
right. Yes.
That's what makes the game great. Come on now. So we'll see.
No, there's seriously nothing like playoff hockey. There's nothing like overtime playoff hockey, because you can't leave the room. You can't answer the phone. You can't look at your phone.
Right.
You're going to miss the goal.
Yeah.
Great. It's great.
And there's no
Mitchell,
shootout.
my dear
Thank God for
friend,
that.
thank you so much for your time. I know we've gone on longer than
seems like we're only talking for 5 minutes. I'm sorry.
But that's how interesting and good this segment was. Alex, anything else to add before we let Mitch go?
One last thing was I want to go back to the Fab Five question before I let you go. Did you get to do filming on them?
No, I was flown out. Fisher flew me out. So Bill Frieda put me on the bench when he was the coach of Michigan, and they played at the NIT in 1984, 85, and he called me in to put me on the bench. I don't know if that was legal or not, but I was working for the Nets, and I'm on the bench of Michigan at the NIT in the Garden. But I'm sitting next to Steve Fisher, so we got friendly. So when the Fisher-Frieder thing broke, where Bo said we need a Michigan man to coach, and he got rid of Frieder, I called Fisher and said, hey, Coach, I'm here if you need me. So he said, please come out. And I did in 89. So every other time he made the Final Four, he made me do the same thing. So I was there in 91 and 92. Where are we? Minneapolis and New Orleans or something? Anyway.
I think one of them was in New Orleans. Yeah.
And so I was there when we lost to Duke and when Pat Sullivan got to make the foul shot. And here's the crazy part. After 89, Fisher promises me, Mitch, you're on the ring list from now on. Well, they didn't win anymore. But I was on I was if Chris Webber doesn't call timeout, I have a ring. Just so you know. That's how. But the Fab Four, I was, and Brian Dutcher, whose father recruited me. He's the guy that left to go to Minnesota. That half the team would have left for. And he had the greatest college team of all time, by the way. We'll talk about that next time.
Sounds good.
This was fun, guys. Thanks for including me.
Mitch, I knew you.
I have no games to tape. I have no college games to tape tonight, so.
You did a great job for us.
But there are 27 pro because nobody plays opposite the men's game last night intentionally.
That's right.
Right.
Everybody's playing tonight.
Lou, I appreciate you connecting us with Mitch, and I'm so glad to see this friendship's continuing now for what, 40 plus years, I guess?
40. It'll be 43 years on June 1st.
Amazing.
When I walked into the Nets office and did not know anything, and 43 years later, we're still going strong. So thank you.
Well, guys, thank you so much. Mitch, thanks for joining Terminello's Take and One Leg Up with Alex Garrett. And come back after the craziness of the postseasons here in the spring.
Thank you so much, guys. Good luck in everything you do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mitchell.
Perfect. Let me cut that. Hang on.